So once you get a concordance, the way you use one is you go to a certain word, which here we'll use PAPS. PAPS 7699 or 3149, right? If it's in the Greek dictionary or the Hebrew dictionary. So this here is the Hebrew dictionary. And we're looking for definition 76. $99, which is here, shad, right? So it means the breast of a woman or animal for as bulging, right? Well, didn't kings have the breast of a woman according to Isaiah? Well, that would be a hermaphroditic king, right? Not a male or a female king. Well, what's the difference between a hermaphrodite king and a male or female king, right? Well, the hermaphrodite king has female breasts, and that has to do with the woman nursing the child, right? And only hermaphrodites and women can nurse a child. Men, right, do not have the ability to produce breast milk because they do not have mammary glands in their nipples, right? Though they have nipples too, for example. So what does definition 3149 mean? That's in the Greek side. Math dots, right? From the base of 3145, a proper female breast, as if kneaded up, say from dough, right? Pap, P-A-P, right? Now, some translations put breast there, right? Which is that wrong? No. But there's something different about the Greek, right? Its word here is feminine, right? As is shad, right? Well, shad and kings with breasts means the king is no longer male or female, but both, right? Or what's called by the Greeks a true hermaphrodite or androgynous person. Well, in the Gnostic Gospels, right, and Paul hints at it in First Corinthians chapter 11, right? When talking of man and woman. Andro, right, in the Greek is man. Guinea, right, usually Gune, right, is woman. Well, the Gnostics also use a term called androgynous, right, which means also the same thing as a hermaphrodite. Hermes and Aphrodite had a son, right? Well, he was either very conceited or very beautiful, right? According to those around him, were very attractive young men, right? Well, a nymph, according to the legend, right, saw him, and she was a water nymph, by the way, admiring his reflection in a river one day, right? But for some reason, she not only wanted to make love to him, but she wanted to join physically with him and become one body with him, right? It's almost the opposite of how Eve was in Adam, but taken out of Adam, right? Except this female wanted to become one body with Hermaphroditus, right? And they merge as one being, right? No longer two, but one, right? Well, if this is part of what Moses is trying to explain about the first pair of human beings, well, being a progenitor of a species and not born naturally, right? You make it as an adult, but how? Androgynously, right? See, that way both the male and female are one body, and then you can make them into two bodies, right? Not really giving birth to them, but making them whole. Mm-hmm. Well, you might ask, why? To seek a godly seed, right? If you're making something from scratch, it has to represent life itself, right? In that form, right? Say you're making a man or a monkey, right? Well, a monkey and a man have similar DNA, let's say the chimpanzee, right? For example, but they don't look alike, do they? They're not the same primate, right? Exactly, right? So you make the chimpanzee and the man the first one, right? As both, right? Neither male nor female, right? Then you take it from that state and make it into two. Why? To represent three states of existence, right? Now, once you've done this, right, you can reproduce to a chimpanzee, right? The chimpanzee as both is then made two, right? To be only a chimpanzee too, right? In other words, no matter how close the chimpanzee and the man's DNA is, even if they can have sex, right? The chimpanzee and the man, for example, that don't mean the male DNA from the human can impregnate the female DNA from the chimpanzee. They're not the same species of primate, right? The difference is there's like 2% difference that makes up the ability to pair the genes into one being, right? That if the male was to have sex with the female chimpanzee and the male human, right, as the example is, right, you can't get the chimpanzee pregnant. Now, it would be odd, since we don't see, a similarity between us and the chimpanzee in the first place, to have sex with one, right? But physically you can, right? Which is why the Bible forbids sex with animals. Now, why is it physically you can do it in the flesh? Well, once you're terrestrial, you're physical, right? is like a block of ice, right? Versus water in the riverbed or water as a cloud, right? Which is just water in its gaseous state, right? Now, why does a water both have a cloud type situation and you can't see it as well? Depends on the molecules and density of the water vapor itself, right? Now, according to the Bible, there's clouds in the atmosphere because of how the water condensates from gaseous to its liquid form, right? And what controls the clouds is the wind produced by heat, hot and cold air rising and falling, right? If you study the meteorology, you would understand this, right? And that causes wind, right? When air temperatures rise and fall, right, that produces what's called either a cold breeze, right, or heat, right, a hot breeze, right? Now, what causes that is air temperatures can be hotter in certain parts of the planet or colder, right? Hot air rises, cold air falls, right? This produces a cause and effect for the molecules around the air, right? Now, there's more than just H2O, though, in the air. There's nitrogen, there's other stuff, carbon dioxide, right? All this together forms our atmosphere, though you can't see it, right? Which is to represent God in heaven, right? We can't see God because it's the breath within our lungs, right? If you see God, you're dead, right? Because it's not a physical thing, like, right? Your body itself, right? It's a spiritual thing. It's a heavenly thing, right? It's the combinations of the molecules in the air, right, that go into your heart that make you alive, right? Without those molecules, though, right, and living in the atmosphere, you could not be here, or you would be dead. You would not even exist, right? You would be nothing, right? Neither alive nor dead, right? So that's kind of what I think Moses was trying to explain, how the first creature for each creature was made as both male and female. And then made from one into two. But the wording of it, right, in the ancient Hebrew language can confuse you, right? Now, I don't think Moses even wrote the Bible, right? I think it's more of a biography, right, of Moses, right? Which causes some people to speculate if he's even a real person, right? Well, again, that's semantics, but I'm sure, you don't make up a story about someone who didn't really exist, right? That's kind of dumb or redundant, right? It's not like, if you make up stories about Hercules, right, in the Greek idea of the man, right, whether he existed or not, right, or Zeus or the other gods or whatever, right, you don't know if it's fictional or real, right? Either, right? Who is this Zeus that would impregnate females and get them pregnant, right? And had a wife too, and cheated on his wife with these women, right? And his wife would get mad with him and put Hercules through the trials of Hercules, right? Well, the reason we know about it is that's part of the Greek religion, right? Well, someone started this with Moses as being the, lawgiver of Israel. And through being raised as an Egyptian, right, Moses, between 80 and 120 years of age, gave Israel a law book, right, called Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy by most modern Christian, Muslim, and Jewish scholars, right, who study into what's called the Torah or Law of Moses, right. Well, that became an issue with religion, right? Even the Quran or the New Testament is based on teachings from the Old, right? Well, to understand both books, you have to read the whole thing, right? I know. Even Islam adds a little something more to Christianity and Judaism than originally thought, but there's other issues, right? Because another problem is, are you reading the whole thing, right? So if you're not, you're confused. If you are, great. So that's to explain if you want to listen, right? If you don't, you're what's called prejudice. You're preset in your mind whether you're right or wrong, right? And then you're a problem for people if you're wrong, right? Because no one can tell you you're wrong then, right? Now, I bought me two things, right? I bought me a thing here, right, to do this, right, so I can clean up the house, right, but I have to sit down, so I got a stool over there, and when I get done, right, again, right, I will either today or tomorrow start cleaning up the house, right, things like that. And I keep explaining to the people I was injured in 94 in the military and broke part of my sacrum, pelvis, and ankle. Was in the hospital for 2 weeks, right? And developed arthritic problems from the injury, right? Not even remembering the first few weeks I was in the hospital, right? Well, the Navy doctors are acting like I should be paralyzed when I'm feeling pain in my left ankle, which was also injured in the fall, right? And I think I kept insisting on that. Well, how I know I'm healed is I feel pain in my ankle. If I was paralyzed, I wouldn't feel any pain. I feel pain, right? I can't lie, right, and say I don't feel pain if I feel pain, right? Now, I can also move with the pain, but the pain can also get worse throughout the day, right? The more you're on something and you start feeling pain from a certain point, being injured, right, that you at least know you were injured. Like I was in a car wreck and I had some kind of neck injury, but I don't know what happened, right? I don't remember anything clearly, right? So after the car wreck, I went on as if nothing happened. I didn't know nothing was wrong, right? I kept doing martial arts, which I started when I was 13, so I read at 16, so that's 3 years of martial arts. And I didn't forget the martial arts I took. I studied under a guy named Cliff Yon. On other videos, I've showed you where the man has his karate dojo and stuff like that. Right. And again, right, that I really took martial arts with Mr. Yon, right? So again, I can prove that to a point, right? But if you don't want to believe me, that's because you're having a problem with something I'm telling you, right? You don't want to believe it, but it don't change what happened, right? For 8 years, I went on into the Navy. I did all the boot camp. I did all the A school. I was trying to learn the routine on my ship. But when I got to my ship, after I went to work in the kitchen for 3 months and got back to the division itself, I was put in the generator shop, and there was this guy there named Ben Campbell, however you say that or spell that. It's either C-A-M-P or C-A-M-B, right? And either way, E-L-L, right? Or one L, right? And he kept asking me if I was gay more than once, right? And I kept telling him, no. But I guess he was the one who was supposed to train me. Why do you ask, like in the movie Highlander, someone who you're supposed to be working with, right, if they're gay more than once, right? Are you cruising for a piece of rear sex, right, with the male yourself, right? Maybe he was, but I kept telling him, no, I'm not gay, right? And he never trained me to do anything of an electrical nature in that particular job field, right? Which he was supposed to train me in working with generator equipment on a ship, right? The ship I was on was called the Saipan, right? And he never trained me to work on anything, right? Well, that became an issue because we got into a fight over it. He tried to push me through a tin wall, right? I hit him upside the head, right, with a right cross or a right roundhouse punch to the temple. And we kind of got in trouble for it, and then they put me in a different division called the Motor Rewind Shop, right? And I was there for a while until I got out of the Navy, right? Or off the ship, actually, right? Now, another problem with the military is if you're having that kind of problem, they won't put you on another ship, right? You're stuck on that ship until the end of your EAOS, right? Or what they call your enlistment, right? So I was stuck on the ship too until the end of my enlistment, right? And that's all I can really tell you about it. Yeah. But whatever's, happened there, it came to a head when I met this girl from a different ship. We were on the beach in a port overseas, right? We kind of hooked up, and then it went south after we started out good, right? And I don't know what exactly happened, right? Or what caused us to really break up, but we wound up breaking up, right? And I got confused over our situation, right? Now, I don't know if I said something that offended her sarcastically, or that I found out that Jesus was a hermaphrodite and she didn't want to deal with that, right? That could be a number of things. I did have a dream, and through reading the Bible, right, God told me I was one of the two witnesses, right? I might add, right? Now, I was telling my pastor, God told me I wanted the two witnesses by a dream I had, right? Of seeing it thrown in heaven, right? And standing in front of it, right? Not meaning spoke to me in an audible voice in my head just yet, but which did happen in 1993, right? But until then, I was just reading the Bible like everyone else, and had the dream after my dad was murdered, right? And I got baptized into the church, right? And I had the dream before I turned 13, a year after I got baptized on November 1st, 1981, right? After that, well, I was reading about the two witnesses, and in the dream it talks of them standing before the God of the earth. Well, in the dream I stood before the throne of God in heaven, right? Well, in Matthew chapter 5 it says, heaven is my throne and the earth my footstool, right? Right. And God's also talked of as being a light, right? So if you see a light on the throne, right, and you're standing in front of it, right, in heaven, right, and you read in Revelations the two witnesses stand before the God of the earth, well, God and Jesus are the God of heaven and earth, right? So you're going to make that connection if you're raised a Christian, right? And think you're one of the two witnesses, right? If you don't, and you think something different, well, I don't know, right? I don't know if all male children are given this dream when they turn 13 or not, right? But I do know I was, right? And that's how I interpret it. I was one of the two witnesses from the book of Revelations, right? And that part of my job is there's something the Bible tries to teach you, but people don't want to learn it, right? And so I'm trying to figure that out for us all, right? Now, that don't mean you have to understand it perfectly the way I do, right? But that means God wants me to understand it for everyone, much like Jesus died to cover our sins to a certain point, right? Well, that's kind of why he's raising me up, because it appears Jesus' sacrifice alone, right, doesn't make other people feel comfortable telling the whole truth or the whole story of Jesus, right? Well, that means they're lying about it 50-50 and are supposed to be punished for it according to the law of condemnation, right? If you're doing something wrong, right, according to the law of Moses, you're supposed to be punished for it. But if you do something right, you're supposed to be blessed for it, right? Well, that can confuse people even with the age of consent, right? Or the age a child's supposed to be with considered an adult, or vice versa. An adult becomes a child, or a child becomes an adult, right? What age is that, right? Well, some states say 16 is the age of consent, right? Some states, like California, says 18, or Virginia, or New York, maybe, right? Well, if Georgia and Nevada say the age of consent is 16, right, and you're in those states and you live there, right, you can't impose your state's law on our state's law, right? That's another problem. I don't try to date 16-year-olds, but legally in Georgia I could, right? For example, right? All I'm doing is telling you there's a 2-year difference, right? In Georgia versus California as well, and the age of consent is 16, not 18, right? And when you do this, right, you're just telling people facts, right? Right. Don't mean I go after 16, 18, or really right now anyone. I'm just single, right? And trying to mingle a little bit, which means meeting someone and getting to know them, right? Versus if we have sex or not, that's up to the girl, right? But I asked her name. Last one I met was named Anna, right? I asked her age, if she's available, meaning does she have a boyfriend, husband, or fiance, right? She says no to that, right? Then I make a move on her, right? I may even have sex with her in the bathroom if she wants, right? And the reason I did that is I met some women who had sex with me in unusual places, and one of them was in a store, right? Now, I'm not upset about it because of a magazine I read growing up called Pit House, right? Or Playboy, right? Which would sometimes describe men, right, mainly, right, and even sometimes women having an encounter, sexual, by the way, right, in unusual places like, say, a bathroom, right, of a restaurant, right, and so again, right, I've heard of that, but I don't recall doing that. But I might have done something with it. I'm not sure. Right. Reason is, once I started talking to her, she had spilt some water on her in the floor. So I asked her, "Did she get wet?" And 20 minutes later, I'm kind of trying to eat my food, but it seems to be going slower, right? I kind of lose a sense of time, right? Though I had pretty much eaten at least one plate of food already, right? And then I have one more plate called my dessert plate, right? Well, this time I went out, I just had one plate and a dessert plate, and I didn't eat more than 3 plates this time, right? Though my weight stayed lower, and I didn't go over 339 this month, right? So I'm still keeping the weight down, right, compared to last month, right, by eating only one plate, right, right, and still the dessert plate, right. I know. Another thing I do is I eat smaller portions. Like usually you'll put 2 to 4 ounces of something to eat, right? Like say you get a buffet, right? Well, with a buffet, right, you get certain items from the buffet, right? You get vegetables, right? You get meat, right? Like beef, chicken, fish, right? Ribs, right? Or shrimp or whatever they got, right? On the buffet, right? Well, sometimes you get bigger or smaller portions, right? To fit on the little plate, right? And of course, I do that too, right? All right. So have a good day.